Well, hey guys, I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, and today I thought we'd talk about ferro rods. And in this fire series, I thought we would start out with hard versus soft ferro rods. And I've got a few of them laid out here, so let me bring the camera in a little bit closer and we'll look at some of the differences in that. Stay with me. Okay, so a variety of ferrocerium rods laid out here, and you'll hear them called by a lot of different names. Metal match, ferrocerium rod, ferro rod, mish metal rod, mish metal fire starters. So what's the difference in all these names? Well, I can't tell, but it seems like people speak of ferro rods in a general sense, and it's kind of a where you're from depends on what you call it, or it seems like there were a lot of different names, and now most manufacturers or most people who sell them just call them ferrocerium rods. Metal match was the one that I grew up with. Now I've got a variety of them laid out so that we can look at some hard versus soft. Probably one of the first ones I was ever introduced to was the Light My Fire Scout. This is very popular with scouts and with lightweight backpackers. It's a small rod. I think it's 3/8 of an inch. About a quarter, I guess. And it's 1 3/4 inches long. They make a larger model called the Army, and that is almost 1.5 inches long, and I think it's 3/8 of an inch, which it is. This is a nice size fire steel, something that you can use and practice with for a long time, but this one is probably the most popular. It comes with a nice striker, but you have to know that it only really works in one direction, but we'll cover strikers later. For today's video purposes, I'm going to use this Blue Hawk. This is a carbide, it's a blade sharpener, but it does a really nice job of scraping these different ferro rods. So this is a hard ferro rod, and let me get the larger one here so that you can see better. But they all come with this black coating on them, and many people will start to use them and they have difficulty, and I've seen them not get through all of the coating and it not work right and give up. Just know that you have to scrape that coating off. Now, I don't scrape the coating off of the entire rod as soon as I get it. I just pick one side that's comfortable for me, and that's the side that I remove the coating off of the ferrocerium rod, and I usually do it maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of the rod. And the reason for that is I live in a saltwater environment, and salt water will deteriorate these rods. It looks like they're rusting away, but it's not rust. They just disintegrate. So I try to keep them coated. The ones that I use all the time, I don't worry about replacing that coating, but if it's one that I'm keeping in a kit for long term and I use it, then I just put some spray paint back over top of it, and that puts a protective coating back on the rod, and it lasts fine even in a marine environment in my boat. I just make sure that it's coated very well. Okay, so larger rod and a hard rod, and you can see I can go pretty slow, and I will throw sparks, and the sparks, there's a lot of them, they're very hot, but as soon as I get to the end of the rod or I stop, you don't see any more burning material down on the piece of wood here. This works out very well when you're pinning your tinder down and you're throwing those sparks straight on top of it, or like the backpackers, you're lighting stoves and that type of thing. Another one that you see a lot of is this one here. This is the Strike Force. I picked this one up from the Pathfinder store and just put a little bit larger lanyard on it so that I could have a little bit more room. It comes with a very nice scraper, and what's nice about this scraper is it works in either direction. So whichever way you have the most dexterity will work with this scraper. I really like that. It comes encased in this ABS plastic handle which gives you something once again good and large enough to hold on to when you might be too cold to hold on to something like just a simple rod without a handle. But the really nice thing about it is it's a hard rod, so it really throws good hot sparks down. It's almost an in-between rod. You can scrape it slow and actually scrape off some of the rod and then ignite it, but it's hard to do. It's a pretty hard rod, but it's almost like a medium. The cool thing about it is in the back it has a place where you can put a surefire tinder, which if you're going to use a really hard rod, having good tinder, I just can't overstate that, the importance of that. And that'll be explained a little bit more as we move on. Some of your softer rods, this is one that I ordered from the Pathfinder store. This is a cheapy rod. I think I caught them on sale for $3. They normally sell for about $5. And this is a soft rod. So I can go down this rod and scrape material off of this very much like you would if you were going to use something like this, the old Dones bar that has magnesium on one side that you scrape off a nice pile of tinder or your and then the other side that has the ferrocerium rod that you can actually do your igniting, which is nice because you have your tinder and your spark, your heat, all in one. But the advantages to a soft rod is being able to go slow and remove material just like I did with that Dones bar. And then when you want to actually throw the spark in it, you just make a move a little bit faster and more downward pressure, and you can ignite all that up. And if that was in marginal tinder, it gives you a longer burn time to start your fire. Great thing about it also is when you pull it back, this type, or even the push, you can see how you get all of the little burning fireworks burning all over the surface. That's what separates the difference between a hard versus a soft rod. And they come in every shape and size imaginable. Here are some larger rods. These are 1/2 inches long. I think this one is 5 inches and this one over here is 6 inches. I ordered this one off of the internet, and this is what I normally carry when I'm going out in the woods. I just drilled a hole through it, put a lanyard chain with a couple of fisherman knots on it so I can adjust it, and this goes through my belt loop or around my belt, hooked onto my keychain, and then this slides down in my back pocket. I don't even know it's there until I need it. Just a great asset. Something, I mean, this thing would last you, this is long-term stuff, but I use it to practice with all the time, so it's good to have a big one. And this is one, the larger one here is the one that I ordered off of the Pathfinder store. And the one from the Pathfinder store is a softer rod. And you can see how long it burns. This one is a harder rod and just throws a lot of sparks, but it throws a good amount of sparks if you want to use this method or this method, or getting right down here on the end. I can peel off a little bit without setting it on fire, but you have to be pretty careful, and that's something you have to practice with. But harder rod. Okay, so there's some differences between hard and soft rods. And I'll just say real quick, there's a couple of rods out there. This right here is it's a little Sparky. It's made where it's all encased. It stores like this. You deploy it by squeezing it. The ferrocerium rod comes out. There's a scraper on the inside. You trap your tinder underneath the foot. You squeeze it, and it puts a striker against the rod and throws the sparks down into the tinder. It's made for one-handed operation, so if you have an issue and you only have one hand, there's an option for you. Light My Fire also came out with the Light My Fire knife. We use this in our school, and it's a pretty small rod, but it's a hard rod. The back of the blade is your scraper, and you can throw some good hot sparks with that, and it's a great product. It's a nice thing to have as a backup. Just one more thing I want to cover about ferro rods. The handles on these things fall off, so expect that. So Dave Canterbury says just wrap some Gorilla Tape around it, and then you've got some fire starter, you've got a handle, you've got a multi-use item here, and you've got something that you can hold on to. That works great, nothing wrong with it. But no matter the price, no matter the manufacturer, even this Light My Fire, the handle fell off. I had to epoxy it back in, and we'll go over handles in another video. Scrapers we'll cover in another video, but just know when you buy your fire steel, if you try to scrape this thing and you have rubbed off the black coating on it, or the coating, whatever the color, and you still can't get it to produce any sparks, and you've tried different angles and different spots on the scraper, this is the Bear Grylls fire starter. It's a pretty hard rod, but it has some soft spots in it, so it's kind of an in-between. It's a good rod, but it's short. But the handle fell off the very first time I got ready to use it, because I was putting so much pressure on it, because the scraper they give you with it, even though it's multi-use because it has a can opener on it, is useless as a scraper. You cannot get this thing to spark. So you have to have something else to scrape the rod. So just know that in advance before we go any further into this series. This is one of my favorites right here. This is from firesteels.com. Comes with a magnesium, a bar, and a hard ferrocerium rod that you can get down here and really just scrape on the end, build up a little bit of dust, but it throws a good shower of sparks. It's not really hard and it's not really soft. This is definitely one of those in-between ferrocerium rods, and it's one of the reasons that it's one of my favorites. Alright guys, that went a little bit longer than what I wanted, but I want you to understand the differences between the ferrocerium rods, and that the only way I know that you can tell if it's a hard, a medium, or a soft rod is to buy it and try it. There are a few manufacturers out there like Light My Fire that they're known for having hard ferrocerium rods. So if you're looking for hard, that's a website that you can go to and check them out. A lot of the other ones out there, you're just going to have to get it and start playing with it and trying different things with it. That's why I like to tell people, buy one, and then if you master your technique and you find out that that's something you like, buy another one to go in your kit. Keep that one and utilize the one that you first bought to experiment and play with. Use that one to do your training with. But we'll go into more depth in later videos. Thanks for joining me for this one. I'm Tim Langston with Red Dog Bushcraft, home of global safety and survival. Until next time, guys, God bless.